afternoon, dear listener. It's another Thursday. You're welcome. This is Radio Nigeria, Highland 101.5 FM, Jos, in the city of Jos Plateau State. And you are welcome back to the Ziva Community Radio Initiative program. And our project is the role of artisanal and small-scale miners, ASM, in energy transition, climate change mitigation in Nigeria. And as always, we bring you insightful discussions on artisanal and small-scale mining, energy transition, and climate change in Nigeria. I am Stephen Eagle, your host. Once more, good afternoon and welcome on the program. Today we shall be looking at another interesting and important topic. And our topic of discuss for today is policy and regulation framework for energy transition in Nigeria. So, policy and regulation framework for energy transition in Nigeria. And this program is proudly sponsored by Ziva Community Initiative with support from the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. Alright, today we shall be delving into how global treaties, national policies, and local relationships via regulations shape the country's energy future. We should also explore the impact of these frameworks on artisanal and small-scale mining, that's the ASMs, and discuss how improvements in regulation could enhance our energy transition journey. To shed more light on this important topic, we are joined in the studio today by Engineer Dr. Kayode Augustine Idowu, Head of Department, Mining Engineering Department, University of Jos. Dr. Kayode, good afternoon and welcome on the program.
Good afternoon and good afternoon, the listeners.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you here. All right, listener, don't forget the program is divided into two segments. The first segment is the interview segment, and we'll then take a break, and when we return, the phone-in segment will kickstart. This gives you the opportunity to call in and be a part of the program by making your observations or comments known on the program. So we shall be taking a short break, and when we return, the program will kickstart in earnest. Not forget, this is the Ziva Community Initiative Radio Engagement Program. Good afternoon. You will come a bit closer so that, apart from this mic, this other mic will pick you. Let me just bring it a bit closer. Yes. Okay. So join us every week on Radio Nigeria Highland 101.5 FM, just Thursdays from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Join in on the conversation for a sustainable future. It's a shared dedication. This program is brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative, supported by Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, promoting sustainable artisanal and small-scale mining practices for Nigeria's energy transition. All right, you're welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Radio Nigeria, Highland 101.5 FM, Jos, and the program is the Ziva Community Initiative Radio Engagement program. On the project, the role of artisanal and small-scale miners, ASM, in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria. The program, like I said, is proudly sponsored by Ziva Community Initiative with support from the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. And our topic of discuss today is policy and regulation framework for energy transition in Nigeria. My guest in the studio is Engineer Dr. Kayode Augustine Idowu, the Head of Department, Mining Engineering Department, University of Jos. Doctor, once more, good afternoon and welcome on the program.
Good afternoon, sir.
All right, listener, Like I rightly said earlier on, the program is divided into two segments. The first segment is the interview segment, where the good doctor shall be responding to some questions, and you can be part of the program in the second segment, that is the phone in segment, when we make our phone line available for you to call in and be part of the program via your comments or contributions. So stay tuned for that particular segment of the program. So we kickstart the first segment, which is the interview segment. Doctor, to kick things off, let's look at Nigeria's commitments on the global stage. Nigeria, like many countries, is a signatory to various global treaties. How do global treaties like the Paris Agreement influence Nigeria's energy future?
Yes, thank you, sir. So, listener, good afternoon once again. Of course, if you look at the treaties being signed by the member states of several COPs, that is the Conference of Parties, you mentioned that of Paris in 2017, even up to the one signed by the United Nations in Dubai, UAE, in 2022, and not the last one last year. Of course, each party members have been trying to ensure we shift from the usual non-renewable energy to renewable energy, and as a signature to that treaties, of course, we may not see the effect immediately, but I want to believe, because there are so many factors that are involved for us to really shift, especially to get the net zero, okay, which is as anticipated to be in 2050, 2060. So, so far so good from the last previous government under President Muhammadu Buhari and to the current one. Of course, you can agree with me that they've been trying all what they could do, especially the framework, the architectural work has been laid down. It is now involved other factors, to put in place in terms of infrastructure and the 4Ps. What are the 4Ps? The development partners, the policy, even the politics. All these things has role to play, and the personalities involved, individuals, even from the locals to the subnationals and to the nationals. So all these things are varied, and they must put all hands must be on deck to ensure this robust energy transition.
Okay, thank you very much. You talked about net zero by the year 2050, 2060. How feasible is it?
Yes, like I said earlier, it is, all things being equal, it is feasible if all decks are, if all hands are on deck, individuals' contributions to it. One thing is to put the policies on ground, and the other thing is for others to follow to ensure that the implementation of those policies. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, from the previous government to the present one, we are driving the policies are driving us towards the renewable energy. For instance, don't forget, Nigeria is blessed with so many minerals, and in the field of extractive minerals. Of recent, we talk about lithium, which is part of the shift from the non-renewable energy to renewable energy. In lithium now in Nasarawa State, there's so many companies are coming up to ensure to imbibe this culture that we need to shape the previous the non-renewable energy that we were used to, especially the locals, so that we can embrace the world is changing, and we have no other option than to change, to be in dynamic, to go into that treaties. We have signed already, and so we have no option but to ensure that we get it right as a nation. So everybody must be partakers of this particular transition of energy.
Okay, thank you very much. You mentioned the 4Ps, if I got you correctly: policy, partners.
Yes, the partners, the politics,
yes,
the policies itself, and the personalities.
Okay,
yes.
So partners, personalities.
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned politics. I picked that one up particularly because we have major players in the fossil fuel industry, big players. Some would say they control, even influence government policies at certain levels. In regards energy transition now, what sort of politics do you think these organizations and multinational corporations will play? Do you think they will play ball in terms of shifting from their mainstay to renewable energy?
Thank you very much. Of course, like I said earlier, one thing is for the policy to be to put in place, but another thing to follow up, and that is the duty of government. The implementation aspect of it is very, very important. So when you talk about the politics, of course, it affects all sorts of things. But if the politics is played right by the government itself, of course, every other things, even the multinationals, also called the cabal or what have you, will play along. But if the head is sick, then the whole body is sick. So the implementation aspect is the duty of the government to ensure the essential regulations are being implemented at the right time. So without looking, no matter whose house is God. So once this is being done, of course, we are looking at it. In Nigeria, we are key players when it comes to energy. Don't remember, we are also member of OPEC and all sorts of things that associate with energy. We are into it. So I expect the politics to be played right by the government. Once you lead by example, other things will follow. So I strongly believe it is doable.
Okay. So basically, you're talking about commitment. All right. Let us bring it down to Nigeria. Could you explain how these global commitments translate into actionable policies within the Nigerian energy sector?
Yes.
How are we seeing enough? Are we seeing enough alignment?
No, not really. To be honest with you, I expected the current government to have improved on what the previous government, like, don't forget, I said it earlier, under the President Muhammadu Buhari, they signed all sorts of treaties, and in fact they came up with the architectural work of that framework, which I expected the current government to have improved upon. But so far so good. I can't see that going into play. For instance, look at our electricity. It's part of what I'm talking about. Today, Nigeria generates almost 10,000 megawatts, and you cannot even transmit 6,000, sometimes 5,000 megawatts. It's difficult for them because of lack of infrastructure. And don't forget, the last government, they did well in terms of infrastructure. Why can't we improve on that so that we can have this infrastructure be laid on once the infrastructure are there to transmit all these things? Then the incentives, once the government brings all these things on board, it will definitely, without targeting, it is doable. Like I said, it is doable. It depends on individuals to play his or her role. That is where we are lacking it. So I still believe that if the current government wants that particular treaty signed to be achieved, then they need to buckle up their bets.
All right. In your summation, you mentioned frameworks. Okay. Let's still keep our focus with Nigeria's national policies. We have certain frameworks already. We like the National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Policy and the Electricity Power Sector Act, Reform Act. How would you assess the effectiveness of these frameworks or existing policies in driving the energy transition reform agenda in Nigeria?
Yes. Of course, so far, I'm not still going to score them on average because of the so many factors. Is it the economic factors? Don't forget, recently subsidy, petrol subsidy was removed by this current government. It has caused a lot of hardship on people. Even people that know the right thing to do, they refuse to do it because everybody is just struggling for survival. And the duty of the government is to ensure security of lives and properties, even the life that is not secured. And you are talking about energy. Somebody that, especially in the northern parts of this country, I observed even from my own household, people prefer to go to get firewood and burn it instead of even buying gas. How much is the gas per kilogram today? And you are telling people to go and buy such things in terms of economic reforms. All these things is not highland. Everything must come together if we are serious as a country, because we are talking about Nigeria now here in terms of these energy transitions and all this. We must be serious once. If we want to get it right, all these economic policies, people must live before they can implement anything that you ask them to do. If you are telling someone, up to now, even from my own community, the university where I work, the January salary we have not received as I speak to you. Is that part, and you expect that person not to go to the bush and get firewood to burn for his family to eat. It might be difficult, except everything holistically is being done rightly. But I can assure you it is achievable. But so far so good. I can't even score them on average.
So you're saying that these policies are below par?
No, of course, there are good policies, rightly, very good policies on paper.
The implementation
In
is
the
the problem.
implementation aspect, and like I said, so many factors has to be involved. It's people that eat that can talk, that can do something. You can't force people to do something when they're hungry. So all these things has a role to play, but they are good policies.
Okay, let's talk about some of the challenges facing these key policies. You've mentioned one. You talked about other factors that might influence several aspects of these policies, like the implementators or the gatekeepers of these policies. What other impediments or challenges do you think they are to facing or are facing these policies?
Yes, one of the challenges, rightly I've said earlier, for the locals, when you talk about artisanal miners, we work in the local areas, in terms of electricity barrier, even road infrastructures. These are also part of the problems. The policies of the government sometimes. The policies of the government, don't forget, last year we just woke up to subsidy is gone. And that subsidy gone has caused all sorts of manners also. Many people died because of that, because they could not, from 200 and something naira, the petroleum aspect of it just skyrocketed to about 1,000 or what have you. Even the exchange rate and all that, the valuation of naira, all these policies, they are impediments for this growth. But until we are serious as a country, we come up together and we formulate the policies as it were, then encouragement in terms of incentives. For instance, if such policies is going to be done rightly, we expect incentives like probably free education from primary school to tertiary education. Although I would still commend the current president for granting loans therefore that this is coming to place, because some of my students are enjoying that now. But it shouldn't be limited to that. The government can still do better in terms of incentives, healthcare delivery to the locals and all that, so that the money going to all those areas can be harnessed. Mining is capital intensive, energy is capital intensive. Even the players there, it requires money. Financing is part of the problems. We talk about the challenges. For us to meet that net zero in 2060, we need money. And that is why we cannot but engage the development partners, the African development banks and all that. They are trying. But we still need to do more so that we can achieve this. But it is doable, we can achieve this. But all players must come on board.
Oh, well, you've highlighted a lot of challenges, but are there any specific regulatory hurdles or challenges to these particular policies and the progress of these policies?
Yes, there are. If you talk about regulations, there are several regulations enacted even by the National Assembly. It's just the implementation aspect that we are lacking. For instance, recently, the Minister of Solid Minerals constituted what we call MIRENCO, Mineral Resources and Environmental Committee. In fact, that of Plateau, and each subnationals, they contributed to it. They formed, each state has MIRENCO now. For instance, on the Plateau State, it is being shared by Professor Stephen J. Malo. He's my boss in the school. He's the one chairing the committee here on the Plateau, to ensure that they speak to the locals, to engage the locals, to know the dangers and all those, because mining activities all around, people need to be involved. People need to be involved. So there are policies, there are regulations, but the implementation is the issue, is the key, which I believe is exacerbating the transition. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. A crucial aspect of energy consumption in Nigeria is artisanal and small-scale mining. Many of the operations still rely on non-renewable energy sources, like you mentioned, which may undermine efforts towards cleaner energy future. How do existing regulations impact ASM practices, especially in terms of energy use? Many of them still carry generators around and emitting CO2 and all that. So,
yes, thank you very much. Like you said, artisanal miners. The word artisanal miners, it means the extraction of minerals. by individuals, cooperatives, or small companies that has to do with that involved with the minimal capital investment. As people might look at it as if they really contributed a lot to the non-renewable energy or climate change of today. Not at all. The literatures, of course, as at today, currently, it is the contributions of artisanal mining in terms of energy usage is 1.7% globally. So to the entire 100%, 1.7%. So where do they even see the electricity to use in the bush? They have to go to the bush, all those remote areas. They mostly work in the remote areas, and that they have no option where there is no power. They have no option that to carry their generators to work, and all these things in terms of mining. Sometimes it is during mineral refining that they use these equipments. So not necessarily mean that they really contribute substantially to the non-renewable energy we witness. But still, government can still do more. For instance, by ensuring that electricity gets to these communities, to these local communities where these artisanal miners reside, so that they can use. And I've said one the other time, by means of incentives, taking probably their children. If you ask them, your children, you are going to be giving them free education from primary school to tertiary education. Such a person, if you ask such a person not to use firewood or all these things, or don't use a generator, he or she can't comply, because the money he or she gets go to another thing entirely. So these are the things that I believe that the government can as well address.
Okay. All right. One final question before we take a break. What changes or improvements could be made to the regulatory frameworks to encourage ASM operators to transition to cleaner energy? You did mention one external improvement, but in the sector itself, what improvements could be made?
Yes, they need to wise up, because energy is a business, especially the financial aspect of it. The energy, the electricity aspect was don't forget, was privatized some years back, and up to now we are still in darkness. Why? Because of so many infrastructures. Our infrastructures are long decade, obsolete. So they need to, without finance, without money, and that's why you can understand. Oftentimes they resort back to tariff here, tariff here, tariff there. No, the energy sector itself needs to look for the finance. If you are not, the capacity miss a lot. They need to generate, to get money and finance the system, so that our target is to get net zero in 2060. But I can't see that being, it is achievable, but I can't see that coming out. All sorts of things need to be improved upon, like balancing of the power plant as well. In terms of that one alone, it will reduce the cost. It will optimize the system, and it will the renewable energy, by making the power plant to be flexible. Once it is flexible, of course, you'll be able to shift to the renewable energy. So I believe those are the key areas that I expect the players to work hard, so that probably we can get as. I believe I'm a very positive person that we can achieve it if all hands are on deck to ensure that these things are done accordingly.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kayode. All right, listener, that's my guest on the program, Dr. Kayode Augustine Idowu, the head of Department Mining Engineering Department, University of Jos, responding to questions on our topic for today on the program, Policy and Regulation Framework for Energy Transition in Nigeria. Don't forget, the program is the Ziva Community Initiative Radio Engagement Program project on the role of artisanal and small-scale miners, ASM, in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria. My name is Stephen Ego. This program is proudly sponsored by the Ziva Community Initiative with support from the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. All right, we shall be taking a break at this point in time, and when we return, the second segment of our program will kickstart, which is the phone-in program, where you get to call in and be part of the program by way of comments or question to my guest in the studio. So don't touch that dial. Stay tuned to Radio Nigeria, Highland 101.5 FM Jos, for the second segment of the program. Stay with us. All right, well done, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I like that 4 P's thing you mentioned. I like it.
Thank you, sir.
No, I'm just trying to. There's several countries where their policies, especially um, um, their policies on foreign affairs, and especially like you're talking about climate change mitigation, many of them are driven and sponsored by multinational corporations that are heavily um, dependent and reliant on what do you call it, fossil fuels. So it's the politics. I fear the politics they are going to play is not going to be favorable
For us.
for renewable energy
Yes.
reformists. It's just going to be difficult.
You are correct.
Because how do you want to phase out their business? All the cars, where do they go to?
If I were the government, I wouldn't have signed that treaty.
It's got to. I
Honestly,
don't know how feasible and
because
doable.
the coal, we're supposed to be generating our energy from coal, from wind, from hydro, from
solar.
geothermal, from solar. These are opportunities for us. Here in the north, we have so many other opportunities. We can go hydro here. The Plateau here, we can go wind. We can all those things.
Let's go back. Let's go back. We're back. All right, listener, good afternoon. And if you're just joining us, this is Radio Nigeria, Highland 101.5 FM Jos. My name is Stephen Ego, and you're welcome to the Ziva Community Initiative Radio Engagement Program. The project focus for this program is the role of artisanal and small-scale miners ASM in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria. Our topic of discuss is the policy and regulation framework for energy transition in Nigeria. And this program, as you all know, this program is sponsored by the Ziva Community Initiative with support from the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. My guest in the studio is Engineer Dr. Kayode Augustine Idowu, the head of Department, Mining Engineering Department, University of Jos. And we've had lengthy talks so far on our topic, policy and regulation framework for energy transition in Nigeria. All right, listener, at this particular point in time, you get to be part of the program by way of calling in. You can reach us on the program by dialing the number 091 6197 5630. That's 091 6197 5630. You can call and make a comment or contribution on the program, or you can ask my guest, Dr. Kayode, a question or two based on our topic and ASMs on the Plateau or in Nigeria in general. So, once again, the number to call is 091 6197 5630. That's 091 6197 5630. All right, call in and be part of the program. Would love to hear from you. All right. So while we wait for the phone lines to ring, let's continue with our discourse on the program. All right. We've touched on some challenges, but let's look ahead. What steps can be taken to improve Nigeria's regulatory framework to support a more effective energy transition? Also, could the government play a more active role? I know you've harped on this severally. But could you be specific on the roles the government needs to play to incentivize renewable energy use and its transition, particularly in the rural or on underserved areas or communities in our country?
Yes, thank you very much. My host. The truth is this: Nigeria is blessed. We are blessed with human resources, natural resources, etc. And one thing that I appreciate was it the previous government is to remove the energy in terms of sign the PI Petroleum Industrial Act into law, and another thing to remove the energy from exclusive list to concurrent list, so that subnationals can partake in it. Of course, we are blessed, like I said earlier, in this country, we can generate electricity even from the coal in the east, from the Enugu coal mine. We can generate energy even from the north, in terms of solar, in terms of hydro, in terms of biomass, and even geothermal. These are energy sources for us as a country. All these are towards the renewable energy. We can achieve it if we are serious as a country. But I believe the government can still do more. It's not just about hydro, because our emphasis has so much laid on hydro and solar power alone. Let us harness other areas where we can generate power, where we can generate energy, so that we can meet the target of net zero, as you know, as signed by the entire COP for the global. In fact, the plan of the world, especially the global north and the global east, is to ensure that we get it right to about 2% of gas emission, greenhouse gas emission by 2060. So a lot needs to be done in this regard. If all decks are doing, not just necessarily the federal government now, but all governments, the subnationals, even local governments, and thank God for the autonomy that has been granted to the local government areas. Of course, if the chairman of each local government, or they can even combine, they can come together and rescue the situation. For instance, in just north, just east, and just south, the chairman of those communities can come together and think about what can they bring into play, especially in terms of energy transition. It will go a long way if each local communities can, we can harness and follow this path. It is going to be a win-win situation for us as a country.
Okay, could you just give an insight or share one of your ideas?
Yes,
that you think the government could
definitely
listen to you.
Yes, definitely.
What advice would you give them?
Yes, let me sincerely advise the local government chairmen and the subnational governors to not just relax on waiting for the federal government to do everything for us. If individuals can as well play a part in this aspect, in terms of whatever the resources that is available to us, to our own area, let us harness it, let us utilize it. They are just being waste on a daily basis. Let us harness them. Like on the plateau where I am presently, we have the opportunity to harness 3 options of these energy sources. We can exploit wind, we can exploit hydro, we can exploit even solar. So we have these opportunities. It's just for the government, to kickstart this. Though it is capital intensive, like I said earlier, in terms of energy, even mining itself, it is capital intensive. It needs money to start such a business, but it is doable. It is doable.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kayode. All right, listener, you're still tuned and listening to Radio Nigeria Highland 101.5 FM. Just the number to call to be part of the program still remains 091 6197 5630. 091 6197 5630. That's the number to call to be part of the program. All right, while we still wait for our callers to call in, I hope we do not have any issue with the network. If that is the case, we might not have any call on the program, but we hope all things being equal, we'll get those calls coming in. All right, you talked about suggestions about government playing a more intentional role in the transition to renewable energy and you also talked about private parties, organizations, individuals. Ziva is doing its part. Sensitization, yes, training. This program is part of their contribution to that effort. So it's a good one. But how can the Nigerian government create policies that make clean energy more affordable for everyday Nigerians, especially in the rural areas? I think that is our focus, the rural areas. What policies can they create to encourage, like you mentioned earlier in your summation, to incentivize more Nigerians? So what policies can be made in terms of making it more affordable for everyday Nigerians?
Yes, thank you very much. The government, of course, need to enlarge its course in terms of our social net. We need to increase that. The government needs to work with the subnationals to ensure that the right policies, like I said, the policies are there, especially from the previous government under President Muhammadu Buhari. Those frameworks are already been there, and the architectural work has been done. What this government needs to do is just to pick it up, probably to add one or two things to it and implement it. The problem is just the implementation. But in an avenue where you want to implement and people are hungry, how do you make it happen? So that is the problem. I think that is the major challenge that is affecting this current government now. But the moment things are falling into places, hopefully now, like last week, we heard that the naira is gaining value. If it can gain value, and of course there is a competition in terms of petroleum products and all that. So if people, the citizens, if they can be well fed, and all these policies and they go align with one another and all answer on them, of course the locals, they know what to do. Everything will be all right. But the moment the policies that the government is implementing and yet people are hungry, the economic situation of everybody is there. Everybody is facing one or the other. It is going to be a tall order for us to climb. So these are the issues. But of course, I believe the government can still do better. But we shouldn't limit it alone. Like I said, it can be even private entities can come in to play their own role. If you have money, if you have finance to do such, go in. It's a business. It's a very good business. Just like agriculture, it's a business. Mine is a business. Energy is a business. Individuals, private sectors can come in and play their role aside from the government, so that things can be done right. Of course, the locals, like I said earlier, the infrastructures and the roads are bad. A lot of things are, and the balancing of power, especially the power plants, if it can be done rightly, it will reduce the cost, it will make sure that the renewable energy is achieved, and at the end of the day, we are good to go.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, still on this particular question, policies. Some say policies and politics are one and the same. So, do you think government needs to open up a bit more to accept ideas from energy experts or the private sector?
Definitely, of course.
Do you think they need to open up a bit more? Do you think they're too rigid? Do you think they are not partnering enough in that regard?
Honestly, the government, let me say this, the government needs to wake up and do the needful. They need to involve the stakeholders. They need to partner the stakeholders. They've started well. Like I mentioned Miracle the other time, this is the initiative of the current government by the Minister of Solid Minerals, instituting what we call Miracle. Miracle is an acronym of Mineral Resources and Environmental Committee for each state, so that they can relate directly to the locals, to engage the locals, their challenges, to know their challenges.
So not more needs to be done with that vehicle.
Yes, so the government needs to do more to ensure that all these things, once we can, they should see it as part of their own. If you are a Plateau person or anybody lives in Plateau, you should see your surroundings, your environmental challenges and everything as your own. Until we take ownership of these particular areas, then that is the only way to go.
Okay, let's talk about advocacy. Advocacy plays a big part in shaping effective policies. How can stakeholders, you've mentioned them quite a lot, how can these stakeholders, from the civil society to private individuals, private businesses, advocate for better energy policies in Nigeria? Now we've shifted the focus from government.
Yes.
We're now talking to NGOs, we're talking to the other stakeholders in the energy sector, apart from government, private individuals, businesses. How can their advocacy shape policy?
Yes.
Have they done enough advocacy in that regard?
Yes, in this, let me first and foremost commend the Ziva communication initiative, community initiative,
Yes,
for bringing this up, because information is power. Without information, you are just there, you are powerless. So in terms of sensitization, to the locals, it is the duty of these civil society organizations, and everybody must be part of this. We cannot just leave it alone for the government. I agree with you in totality. The civil society organization, it shouldn't be just on politics that we see them when the election is coming and you see all kinds of civil society coming up to monitor elections and all that. In terms of these areas too, they should wake up. They should sensitize the communities about their responsibility, especially the climate change. It's real. The climate change is real. It's real. So the global warming is real. People should wake up, not just the government. So I agree with you. Others should even emulate you. The way you are promoting this sensitive area, because with energy transition, honestly speaking, Nigeria is good to go. It's good to go. So I encourage others to emulate that. Of course, that is the way to go.
All right. Earlier on, you talked about the energy reform agenda being capital intensive. Anyone that hears capital intensive and doesn't hear equal measure of return, or even more so, will dare not want to venture into such an enterprise. Is the renewable energy sector, is it profitable?
Extremely profitable. It's just like mining. Mining is capital intensive, but the returns, honestly speaking, is like a gold digger. When the returns is enormous as well. It's like you put in, garbage out. So the more you have the capacity to do the business, the more the returns. But there is enough money in those two areas. Is it in energy? Is it in mining sector? So of course I encourage people to venture into the business. Energy is a business. Agriculture is a business. Mining is a business. But they just need capital to start it up. And once you start, honestly speaking, the returns is enormous. It's huge for investors. There is no fear at all. Yes, about it.
Okay.
Based on my experience, and I can categorically tell you that the returns are enormous. But you just need the capital base to start off. Yes.
All right. We've talked about, we've talked about government. We've talked about private individuals, NGOs, and other stakeholders. Let's talk about not the last stakeholders, but one of the stakeholders. For me, one of the most important stakeholders. That is the local communities and the ASMs, as the artisanal and small-scale miners themselves. Is there enough involvement from them in creation of energy policies, or is there a disconnect between them and the policy makers?
Of course, the only area that I need to talk about that, like I said earlier, we call them artisanal small and scale miners, ASM. That shows that they use small equipment, because they are not privileged to a very large capital. They start with a small capital to do their business, and most of them you find them in the communities, the local communities, going with one hand to use, instead of using large equipment, they use smaller equipment, tools, to even work and to work there. Of course, I believe there are roles to play. They need to cooperate with the government, especially when the government is ready to assist them. One thing is to encourage people to do something, and another thing is to accept the acceptability of the government innovation in terms of technology and innovation, because the life itself now is a life of erudition, whereby you learn on a daily basis. You don't need to be to stick to what you had known in the past. You need to move forward, a step forward. So there are good technologies, good innovations now, that is the use of even AI now. So that means the government still has a role to play in that area, to train these artisanal miners, to train them, to let them exposed to the latest technologies and innovations in the system, in the energy sector. And this has to do with also advocacy, like what you people are doing. So I really commend you on this, so that the locals we should take it to the locals, probably through the posters and all that. The local government chairman or what have you can take it up, so that even in so many languages, not just necessarily in English language, which is an equal factor, but even in Hausa, in Yoruba, in Igbo, they can interpret those things in posters to encourage them, so that they can participate fully and be on the same page with the government. Because one thing is, if the government, like I said, the policies are there, if the government is going this direction, and this thing is they are not going this on the same page, we may not get it right. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, still with policy makers. Like I said earlier, there's a say that policy and politics go hand in hand. In terms of the policy maker, would you say, like I asked the question, is there a disconnect between the policy maker and the people they serve, in terms of the policymaker not being an actual stakeholder in that field, being a subject matter expert, or like I said, politics will just put someone there that is probably has little or no knowledge of the subject matter. Does that now affect
Definitely.
these policies and slow down the process?
Definitely. This is Nigeria. I'm bold to say this. This is Nigeria, where anything goes. Where anything goes. You can do your research. Go to most of these ministries of power and energy. Of course, even from the last government, the Minister of Power, who was the Minister of Power? A barrister, a son, senior advocate of Nigeria, in the ministry where an engineer supposed to hold. He was a lawyer for many months or years. He was still learning what is current, what is electricity. So when you put a square peg in a round hole, you get it. You cannot be doing the same thing and expect a different thing entirely. But the current government, of course, let me commend the current government on that, because if you look at those portfolios, of course, but they can still do more. It's like calling me. I'm an engineer by profession. Calling me to come and be the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation to do what? This is a disconnect that we are talking about. And you go to most of the ministries. You see the Ministry of Solid Minerals, you just see a physicist. What is he doing there? In the Ministry of Solid Minerals, Ministry of this, you see historian, you see a lot of things, all sorts of things. This is Nigeria, where anything is possible. Once you know somebody, they just put you there, just stay there. Until we get it right, we can't continue like this. We should put the right people, the experts, the professionals. Let them do their job. Put them in where they belong, so that we can get good results. Honestly, that is the only way to go.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Engineer. All right, time is fast running out for us on the program. So, as we wrap up, what are your final thoughts? Do you have on the intersection of policy, regulation, and energy transition in Nigeria? Where do you see the country in the next 5 to 10 years? And is there a specific policy or regulation you would advocate strongly for if you had the chance to directly advise government?
Yes, let me advise the current government that they need to wake up and do the needful. The framework, the policies they are showing out, they are very good policies that will shape this country hitherto, but they need to do more, and especially in the areas of implementation. I've said it earlier today. They need to implement. If they say they want to do A, let that A be done, and that irrespective of what the challenges is surmountable. Those challenges are surmountable. They need to put everything in order, because the framework has already the architectural work has already been done. It's just to implement those policies. It's just to implement them. The PIA Act is a very good one. The removal of the energy sector from the exclusive list to the concurrent list is a very good one. If possible, they can see even everybody can be partakers of those policies. But the policies played should be to the beneficiaries of the citizenry. Especially, they should be reminded that the treaties and most of these COPs signatures that they've signed, we should be seen as one of the greatest countries in Africa, because we are the giant of Africa. Unfortunately, we are the leader of the ECOWAS. Our president is the chairman of the ECOWAS. So he needs to lead, he needs to lead by an example, so that other countries within the African continent can emulate us, and so that we can get the net zero as anticipated in 2060.
Thank you very much for your insights, Dr. Kayode. It's been a very enlightening and conversation on our topic of today, which is the role of policy and regulation in Nigeria's energy transition. Thank you very much. I hope our listeners now have a better understanding of the challenges and opportunities in this space. So, once more, Engineer Dr. Kayode Augustine Idowu, Head of Department, Mining Engineering Department, University of Jos, my alma mater, a wonderful university, capacity and content always. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
You're welcome, sir.
I also like to thank my production crew, Ashe and Co. Thank you very much. And the DCAs, Davo, Gyang and Christela, thank you very much. Thank you, our listener, for investing your time with us. Do well to join us same time next week for another educative and enlightening program brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative. So from us here to you, until next time, it's bye for now. My name is Stephen Eagle.